All right, all right. Greetings, everybody. Roberto Germán from Multicultural Classroom. Welcome to our classroom, where we like to chop it up with individuals doing different things and related to education, because we're all on a journey and education doesn't just happen within the four walls or the classroom. I'm excited because today we got a young man who's doing some big things. Starling Hiraldo, who I've been working with and I've known for quite some time. As a youngster, when I was working at St. John's Prep, I recruited him there and then went to take on a challenge at a different school, but nonetheless had the opportunity to introduce him to that institution, and been watching from afar, watching you do some great things. So extremely excited to have you here today. Thank you for being here. Estarlyn, I'm going to give you the floor so you could go ahead and introduce yourself. Why don't you tell the people who you are, how you self-identify, and where you were from?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you for having me first and foremost. It's a pleasure to be here and pleasure to be working with you. My name is Starling. I go by Starling The Kid as an artist online. I'm a multimedia artist, musician, and filmmaker. Grew up in the Dominican Republic and I moved to Lawrence when I was 10 years old. Like Roberto said, I went to St. John's, graduated from Providence College, and pursuing a career in film and entertainment. Um, my mission is really just to tell underrepresented stories about marginalized communities and families and upbringing, and really bringing those to life in a compelling but relatable way. Really to challenge society and to bring a new voice to the table. So that's what I'm all about, and I'm excited to be here, man. I'm excited to talk about the project we've been working on.
Yes, yes. Thank you, thank you. And we're gonna unpack a little bit more your whole mission of telling stories from the perspective of marginalized groups. Love that. I would like you to just share a little bit about your educational journey and background. You mentioned St. John's Prep and you mentioned Providence College. If you could give us a little bit more, and in that, how did you get to where you are today? As a young filmmaker who's up and coming, and I feel great about your future. I think you're going to do great things. I think you're going to blow up with what you're doing. But love for you to share how it is that you got to where you are today, especially because there might be some young folks who are interested in being filmmakers or just interested in multimedia, but also for educators so that they can hear stories from individuals like you, and it might inspire them as they're working with youngsters to consider how they're approaching young people, consider how they can lead them, guide them, support them so they could get to the place that you're at and beyond.
Right. No, for sure. So for me, I like to say that my education shaped the way I think, but also shaped the way that, the course of life that I've taken. Because, like, if it wasn't for my educational journey, I wouldn't have made the connections that led me to realize, like, oh, film is what I want to do, because it combines all the fundamental principles artistic principles that I've gathered throughout my life, but I'm also able to say something bigger, and bring a voice to the table, right? Through a very unique and mass consumed medium, right? Um, like I said, I moved to Lawrence, Massachusetts when I was 10 years old. So, I, I guess you could say I was a nobody, I've been always involved in the arts. I've been painting and drawing since I was 6 years old. And I picked up music, picked up piano when I was like 11, 12. And just, I've always been working on my hobbies and talents on the side. Went to charter school in Lawrence, Lawrence Family Development Charter School. And from there, I was able to always keep up, like, my educational journey. That was always very important to me because I knew it was something that my parents didn't have, So that's
Mm.
always what's been driving me forward. But for me, it's been a challenging journey because I also know, like, I have this passion of mine that is ultimately what I want to make a living out of, because it makes me happy. And not just following a traditional educational journey, right? and something, studying something that, perhaps I'm good at, but doesn't necessarily, I know fundamentally doesn't make me happy because, I'm not telling a story that can change someone else's life, right? Um, so nevertheless, I went to St. John's with the help of being at the charter school and learning English, like really working on my educational abilities, but also my craft over the years. Went to St. John's, did a bunch of clubs there. Really involved with the art department, and got I'd say I think that's where like my first years of social justice and activist work also was put into action and to practice. And through that, I realized like with the kind of stories that I was passionate about telling, from things that happened in my community, an underrepresented community, right, in Massachusetts. Going to a predominantly white institution kind of propelled me and bring out that energy in the way that I represented myself, the way I represented my people, and the way that I others. From there, like I said, I went to Providence College, and that was, in college is a different environment for sure. Again, another predominantly white institution, but definitely much larger and less supportive than the bubble that I had been used to at St. John's, I want to say. And that really like, that pushed me even further outside of my comfort zone because there was less support, and finding myself navigating these spaces. You know, I realized I took a film class my freshman year analyzing film, and I'd always been into movies like growing up all the time, but I never, it wasn't anything that I ever considered like looking at that. I'm like, oh, like making those things is an actual living, like that just never crossed my head before until because I came into college undeclared. I didn't come in with a specific major that I had chosen already. I was just kind of taking different classes. I took marketing and like film and just a different bunch of classes, and it wasn't until I took that class that I realized when you study something, like the actual theory and practice of it, that's when I realized like, hold up, wait a minute, everything that I've been learning throughout my life artistically, I find it in this one medium that, believe it or not, is the most consumed art form there is, in our society, and along with music and then, and just entertainment in general. And that's when I realized like I am really passionate about this, and I feel like I can pursue a life telling the stories I want to tell in this way and reach the most amount of people and reach different communities and propel people to think differently, to see beyond their own little bubble and their own perspective. Mainly like a white, predominantly white and homogenous perspective, because that's what the industry has been for a long time, and that's what our American society has been for a long time. So again, being at that institution pushed me beyond my boundaries, and really developing a social activist voice, I think, and for social justice, and realizing that I have the complete autonomy of choosing what stories I tell, right? And when I tell a story, it's not for my own like benefit or my own, I guess, from my own stance, but it's really to represent people. That's what I do it at the end of the day for, and that's what fulfills me. And I hope by doing so, I can fulfill other people as well as I aspire a career in directing and producing.
That's dope. That's dope, man. Representation matters,
Yes,
and
sir.
we need more filmmakers like you who come from your perspective, who understand the immigrant experience, who understand uh, the the joys and the struggles of coming from a city like Lawrence, um, who's navigated not only that space, but then navigated the predominantly white spaces and done so successfully. So props to you for all that you're doing and for your vision. in terms of your filmmaking. You directed and edited my video, Yo Soy Un Plátano. And with all that you have going on, why did you decide to take on that project? And if you could describe the process of working on this project, including the trials and the triumphs.
Oh, for sure. You know, I was really, really excited to work on this project when you first proposed it to me. You know, even before we had even discussed the topic or what, you know, the spoken word piece, what it was about, I had a feeling that, you know, I know the context and the topic of this project was going to be impactful. You know, it was going to be something that I could relate to because, you know, I also know your background, you know, coming from very similar background and also seeing the great work you've been doing with the multicultural classroom. I knew that it was something that was going to align with my mission, but it was also going to, you know, further my thinking, my perspective, and give me a chance to like stand up for the culture, and really bring that to life, to different spaces, right, in ways that I haven't been told before. The process, you know, we kept meeting regularly, which I really like to do. I really like conversation, really taking bits and pieces and, you know, strategizing what's the best, most succinct way we can come up with the best project as efficiently as possible. You know, to really bring it out to the people. And I think we delivered. I think we did do that. And I'm very proud to say that I really enjoyed the process working together. You know, and that sort of thing as well, you know, meeting regularly and discussing like you know, the idea and figure out what shots we want, you know, how can we get footage, you know, it can take a little slow sometimes. It could, you know, it's a lot of back and forth for sure, but that's the beauty of it, you know, that's the beauty of creation. That's the way I see it. Over time, it's a muscle that you develop, right? It's a muscle, it's a visual creative muscle that you develop when you do one thing for the first time, or for the first couple of times. I know for you, it was probably like a different type of process, maybe that you followed in the past. And for me, it's, you know, it's a similar process, but I like to say that no project's ever the same. You know, I never really follow the same exact process.
Okay.
With every project, because context is different, topic is different, the story is different, right? So I really enjoyed taking on this project because it's very, very important and core to my identity. And I want to see how it resonates with other people who also identify as a Dominican immigrant or someone of Dominican heritage like ourselves.
Right.
But even more importantly, people that don't identify as being Dominican and seeing how that resonates with them, you know?
Yeah, so from my perspective, you know, I wanted this piece to be created by somebody from a Dominican background who understood the Dominican American experience. And, you know, I've been following some of what you were doing. You had put out the short film. The title escapes me. Give me the title.
Heritage.
Well, Heritage I did see, but the most recent one was like the horror one.
Oh, Into the Frame, yes.
The Frame, yeah. And I was like, oh, snap, he's stepping it up. You know, I checked out like some of the other videos you put out. I'm like, yeah. I got to work with Estarlyn because, you know, he'll understand what I'm trying to do here. And for those those of you that don't know, you know, I might have shared this once recently, but if you don't know, I actually don't really like to be in front of the camera. And I shared that with Starling. And he did challenge me on that. And even throughout the process, there was some feedback that you gave me. And I'm like, all right, you know, like back to the drawing board here, which was fine because I'm like, you know, for me, part of this was like trust exercise. Like, I don't like to do this type of stuff if I'm not working with somebody I trust, and there's a lot of people I don't trust, so I just don't do it. But I understand that, like, in this season of my life, I'm trying to come back to the fold in a different way. And as you said, we could use this medium to really impact people and reach so many people because so many people gravitate towards the visuals. And so I'm like, all right, fine. let's work. I'll be in front of the camera a bit. I'll try to loosen up with that. But also understanding that you would implement my ideas in terms of making sure we're representing these core aspects of the culture, so that it just really connects with people, but also it gives that feeling that we wanted to give and portray that aligns with what I'm saying in the spoken word piece, Yo Soy Un Plátano. So I thought, you brought it alive well, but that you also did a good job in the director's seat of offering me that constructive feedback that sometimes we don't want to hear, or we don't want to implement or whatnot. And that's important. It's important for us to be able to listen to receive, and to apply constructive feedback. So I appreciate you for that.
For sure. And I like to say, like I'm glad. First of all, people need to know this about me. I'm gonna challenge you in any way I can. I really am, because in my experience, that's the way we learn as human beings. That's the way I've learned everything I picked up throughout the years. Learning is relearning. Writing is rewriting. Like learning is just picking up something and revising the faults, right? Revising the areas of improvement. How can you get it better? What can you change to maybe represent the content in the most solid, efficient way, whatever that may be, whatever your goal may be. So I was also challenged, also working, I think, remotely as well, with someone. The constraints of not being in the same space and figuring out, like, okay, who's getting what footage, and how are we inserting this clip here? How are we gonna make everything align together, right? If we're not even in the same space together, because I can very much be a kinesthetic and physical person, like moving visuals here and there. So like even for me, that was a challenge. But every time I've challenged myself, so I exceed my expectations, and that's what I like to bring onto the table whenever I collaborate with someone. It's just how do we challenge each other, and how do we push each other to tell the story we want to tell in the best possible way, and retain its authenticity while doing that. So I definitely think we deliver in there, and I appreciate you for trusting me in the process, and also pushing yourself a little bit, like being in front of the camera, and helping yourself like exercise that muscle as well.
For sure, for sure. And to give further context for the listeners, we and the viewers, we filmed this. Well, I'm in Tampa, Florida, and Estarlyn's been back and forth between Providence and Lawrence, and so that's what he was referring to, the challenge of like, all right, well, how do we piece this all together? And then on my end, my devices are acting up major. So between the camera and the computer, some things weren't working out as smoothly for me. So I got my niece, Maya Zavala, involved, and I'm like, yo, I'm gonna need you to come through with your device, because you have better quality for the video. And so, thankfully we were able to do that. But we're excited about this project and to share with y'all, which will be done tomorrow. So y'all be on the lookout for that. Also in the process of printing up some t-shirts. I'm still working on the mock-ups, but there's going to be some Yo Soy Un Plátano t-shirts. So y'all got to peep that, rock that, represent. I want to get into this last segment, which is having you share with us, what are some ways that film can be used to enrich the educational experience that perhaps educators have not considered? And as a young up-and-coming filmmaker, what type of support do you hope to receive from people that will help you get to the next level? So we'll start with that first piece, which is, again, what are some ways that film can be used to enrich the educational experience that perhaps educators have not considered?
Right. I think film can be used as a form of conversation. Something that I've learned in my own educational journey and studying film is that I at least believe, and there's many theorists that think differently, but I believe film is a language itself, right? Separate from what we speak, what we hear, it's a language of interpretation. And through interpretation, I like to think that comes conversation and comes challenging each other. And through challenging comes education. I think film is education at the end of the day. Um, my experience, film, we typically, I've gone into a classroom, it's like, the teacher shows, he might show a film, and depending on depending the professor, the instructor, whoever it is, maybe that might be a conversation afterwards. Maybe there might not. Maybe you just have to write a paper on it and give your own review on it. The most impactful way that I've learned from film is talking about it afterwards. When you see something on the screen and the instructor brings something in and you're watching it together in a classroom with people. Obviously, it's a little bit challenging right now during COVID times, but assuming that this is the normal world, like being able to talk about something you just watch and recognizing your own interpretation of that content and seeing how it aligns or it differentiates from the person next to you brings about that conversation, brings about that conflict. Film is all about conflict. If there is no conflict, there is no action, and there is no action, there's no characters, there's no script if it's a scripted thing. If there's no script, there's no story, right? So at the very core, it's all about story. I think in the educational world, film can be utilized as a form of communication, of conversation, and not only that, but bringing film practice into spaces that typically don't, regard it as a main part of the curriculum. So like I said, so I've been in classrooms where the professor will kind of just slip a film or a movie maybe at the end of the course, or maybe just like as an extra credit thing where you just like write your own review on it or that sort of thing. Like, no, and I've been in other spaces where there's actually a film every week, and part of the class is a major discussion on it, and you're taking notes and what other people are saying and what you think, and synthesizing how does what I learned in this story play out in my life, and how does it apply to society at large, right? I think that's the key to bringing film into education. And I would also say that it wasn't until I took classes, and really studied the medium itself, that I've learned a lot of the context behind it, the history. I think it's important, very important, to learn the history of it. Like I mentioned before, I didn't recognize how white, predominantly white, and privileged, people that have gone into film have been, the kind of backgrounds that they come in, like when do you ever hear of like Dominican Spielberg, to that degree, right?
Yeah.
Which
No.
I'm trying to change that,
Do it.
Obviously, But to my point is that learning the history behind it really helped me appreciate the medium even more, because it made me realize what it's missing, right? And throughout its history. And it made me realize that I have everything in my power and my potential to bring about that change. Not just change the history of the medium itself, but bring it to other spaces that can take away from it exponentially. So I really think that's, if you ask me, that's the future of film and education. I think that's the part that it plays into educating the entire person.
Well, to build off of that, that's awesome. To build off of that, what type of support then do you hope to receive from people that will help you get to the next level, that will help you become that Dominican Steven Spielberg?
I want to say first of all that it's definitely a very challenging journey. It's not easy to convince people that everything nowadays has to sell. If something doesn't sell, it's like it's not really respected as a profession, as a legit medium, as a something that's like well established and legit, whatever that might mean, whatever that means, really. And with that being said, like it takes a lot. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of grind, a lot of revision, a lot of soaking up stories as much as possible, conversation, but also support. Whether it's donating to a short film that is being shot, an independent film, or showing doing a screening of an independent film at if you have a business, right, a local business in the community, and you think it's a film that can bring about a great cause for the community that you serve, something that's just greater than running your own business itself, but really about bringing people together. That sort of thing, I think, is what I need in my own journey to get to that end goal, right? And like I said, it's just I never think about my career and my journey in this as a solo thing. It's a village to make a film. First of all, it's impossible. It's all about networking. It's impossible to make a film solely on yourself. At least of a large movie of that degree. That it's not like a small production like the ones that I've worked on in the past. But its support can look in many different ways. It could be as simple as, hey, someone just dropped a new thing. Let me repost on my story on my social media. Hey, let me tell people about it. Word of mouth. If there's a fundraiser or crowdsourcing being done for a new project that's gonna benefit many communities or community at large, like if you are able and have the capacity to like donate to that cause, because it's I think that's the hardest thing. It's like convincing people to help you fund a project is very, very difficult. I'm sure that you can attest to this too. And that's not just film, but any community-based work, whether it's a nonprofit, whether it's a festival, an event, a film, any kind of artwork, like a workshop, anything like that. It can be hard to sell people, but I think the key is to think about it not as like you're trying to sell someone. It's about how does that person's mission or project align with my values and the values of my community and my own morals and the way that it plays into society. How is this going to add to the greater good, And how can I play my part? Even if I can't support financially, how can I play my part? How can I be a piece of this, right? To help that person bring that story forward, bring it to life and to fruition, and let it be, grow a life of its own. So I think that's the kind of support that I, as an independent filmmaker, need to really represent my people, represent my culture, and challenge spaces that are not, that are not used to hearing our stories,
right,
and our perspective.
right.
Because if your own people don't support you, who else do you expect to support you?
Yeah. I mean, that's to me, that's a major thing that you're hitting on. Like that we got to stand up and represent for our peeps. So if you're from Lawrence and you're listening to this right now, my expectations you're gonna support the young buck, Starling. Si tú eres dominicano, if you're Dominican y no está escuchando, ya tú sabes, hay que apoyar Starling en sus esfuerzos. He's not just doing it for him, he's doing it for the community. So step up and represent. So where can folks actually, before we go to the where, what is a message of encouragement you want to offer to people that are listening, that are watching right now?
Message of encouragement. Huh. I want to say, no, you know, that's cliche as it sounds, but you know, never stop, never stop, whatever you're doing. You know, I think people think that they have to like wait to become a certain type of person to get started on something.
Mm.
But remember that hobbies, things that like people might regard as a hobby or you know as a side like as a side thing or side talent that you know doesn't really isn't really considered like as a legit like lifestyle like I mentioned before, right? Those are the important things. Those are the things outside of your day job because you might have a job just to pay your bills that you might hate, right? But if you know you're doing whatever it is, whatever you're doing that fulfills you and you have a passion for it, keep doing it. Don't stop. Because if you're stopping, you're listening to people that want you to stop and that might not even be supporting you, don't want you to get far ahead.
Mm.
Um,
Right.
I recently read this book that the biggest thing I took away from it is that don't wait until you know who you are to get started.
Mm.
Because if you wait until that point, you're never gonna start.
Mm. Right. We're always getting to know ourselves, right?
But
He's
you're
always
always changing, you're always growing.
right.
The best moment to start is now. It's in that moment. It doesn't, and it's not like don't make ridiculous goals for yourself. You know, you don't have to start making like the next, you know, the next blockbuster movie or you know the next like Coachella or crazy event or like the next Grammys or anything, you know, or the next like corporation or booming nonprofit. Start small. Start analyze your life situation and start wherever you know you can start, what you can handle.
Right.
Just don't wait too long.
Where can people follow you?
You can follow me everywhere, man. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter. You can find me on YouTube,
Tell them your
LinkedIn.
handle. Tell them your handle so they're aware.
Yes, sir. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, Starling the Kid. You can, and as well on YouTube. You can watch some of my films also on Film Freeway. Same thing, Starling the Kid on YouTube. And you can also follow me, connect with me on LinkedIn, Starling Hiraldo. You know, we keep that for the professional side. But yeah, I'm everywhere. Well, I'm hoping to be on TikTok soon. So we'll keep you in the loop for that. But yeah, Instagram, Twitter, follow up with what I'm doing.
Hey, go ahead and follow him now. If you use any of those platforms, please do so. Connect, follow up, support the young brother, Starling Hiraldo. Man, I want to thank you. I'm so grateful. And this ain't the last time we're going to have you on the platform here at our
Oh no,
classroom. You
of
know, I'm
course.
hopeful, as I told you before, I'm hopeful that we can take what we've done with Yo Soy Un Plátano and really build that into a series that focuses on identity, in particular Dominican American identity. So, you know, I've mentioned to you, I got a few other pieces, Café con Leche, Lengua, a few other pieces that I really would like to partner with you on and develop just to like keep that energy and develop our partnership and our workflow and whatnot and just create something great for the people. So I anticipate
Uh,
having you back on, but I'm grateful that you made the space to be here with us today.
You know, man, you know, I'm here and I'm looking forward to keep working with you. And also for anyone out there listening, like, hey, you on Instagram, you're on Twitter, you're on YouTube, my email, find my email. It's all attached to my social media. Like, if you're interested in collaborating, like, just hit me up, DM me, text me, email me, whatever. Like, that's really how, you know, how we step up for the community, for our people. And I'm always looking to collaborate with new creators because that's also how I learn in my own practice. And I hope that I can teach people something new as well. You know, we're all teachers and students. That's what I like to think. And like you said, education extends far beyond the four walls of the classroom. So collaboration, I think, is key for education. So hit me up. Anyone that wants to collaborate, work on a project, like I'm all ears and I'm always trying to look for the next thing. So when I see a good thing, you know, I don't skip on it. You know, I address it because I think it's important. So thank you for having me, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Our pleasure, our pleasure. Hey, to all of you who are hanging out with us today, thank you, thank you. Share this. Go ahead and bring other people into the conversation. Follow up with us. We appreciate you. Welcome to our classroom. We out.